Here's my full ranking of the Saw franchise. The Saw franchise is one of my favorite franchises in all of horror, and I recently decided to revisit my ranking for spooky season. Like most people who like the Saw franchise, I'm at least entertained by every single Saw movie. There are just some movies that I like more than the other, and that are simply better. And there's a good chance your ranking will be very different from mine, which is another thing that is really cool about this franchise. Let me know what your rankings are in the comments, but let's get to mine. Starting off at the very bottom of the list of 10 films, I have Spiral. No matter how much I like Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson, not even their performances could have saved this film that was kind of doomed from the start. Typically, one of the more uninteresting and boring parts of Saw movies is the detective stuff, and now this movie is just detectives and just detective stuff. And the voice of this new killer just wasn't intimidating. The whole like pig puppet I just didn't find to be like very cool or very menacing at all. And it also just has like a painfully obvious twist villain at the end. Just everything about this film was a miss for me. Up next in the ranking is Saw 7. Even though this is the 7th installment in the franchise, it somehow is the worst looking one. They're really trying to capitalize on the 3D popularity at the time, but it ended up making the movie just look really bad. If you've heard it once, you've heard it 1,000 times about people complaining about how the blood looks like pink in this film. And even though the concept of a person claiming to be a Saw survivor but lying for notoriety and popularity and then being tested with Saw traps is great, the execution just could have been much better. I'm also just not really a fan of the traps that test people at the expense of people's lives. I would much rather have it be just kind of a one-on-one thing or a group trap where everyone is being tested. But if you've seen other Saw rankings, this movie is most likely towards the bottom for all of them. And up next, I have Jigsaw. This is definitely one that I think people could be much higher or much lower on, and I'm definitely much lower on it. I'm much lower on it because I think the twist just doesn't make sense to me. Having the twist be that the guy who's a part of it has been a part of it from the beginning, and then this flashback that's supposed to be taking place as Jigsaw's first trap has like HD cameras and modern stuff. It just all didn't make sense to me. Like Billy the Puppet's eyes were glowing in Jigsaw's first trap ever, but he never glows again. That just didn't make sense to me. And the traps were fine. They weren't really that memorable to me. The only thing about this film that was nice is that it looked better. It looked more modern. And it has a great kill at the end. That's one of the best kills in the entire Saw franchise, but still just couldn't really get behind it. And up next is another one that I think a lot of people are higher on than I am, and that is Saw 6. This one sets itself apart because it has actual commentary that it's trying to say about the healthcare system. And I think the commentary is well intentioned, but I just still didn't really get behind the film. Like I just said, I don't really like when it's a trap where one person is being tested at the expense of other people's lives. Not to say this doesn't have some good moments. I tried to watch it, tried to get into it again. It just isn't the one for me. And this is probably a hot take to have this above Saw 6, but I have Saw 5 next. I honestly would have it higher if it wasn't for the just terrible, insufferable group in the group trap in this film. And the traps and tests just really suck. That whole group trap, it really is the worst in the franchise. But I just love the character of Agent Strom, and I love him going head to head with Hoffman in this film. It also starts off really strong with the pendulum trap and with Strom in the box. Those are two very, very strong starts in the film, but it just really tapers off from there. And it also has a great ending with Strom and Hoffman finally facing off, and then Strom obviously losing. But again, it would be much higher if it wasn't for that terrible group trap. And then up next, I have Saw 3. This is the one that I'm kind of lower on, but it's higher on the list because it has two of the best traps in the entire franchise. The rack and the angel trap for Agent Carey are two of the best traps in all of the Saw franchise, and it's not even close. But other than that, it's not my favorite. I really can't stand, as James from Dead Meat calls him, slow-ass motherfucking Jeff. I cannot stand that character. And again, it's another one where the trap is the person being tested at the expense of other people's lives. I just don't really like that concept. It does have some really gnarly surgery scenes, which I will say is awesome. But again, other than that, just not really my cup of tea when it comes to the Saw movies. Now, I think a lot of people are going to call me crazy for having this one so high, but next up I have Saw 4. I love Saw 4. Even though I'm kind of hypocritical by saying I don't like when someone is being tested at the expense of other people, but I do love Riggs' test. Riggs' whole thing is that he's just simply not supposed to interfere, but still chooses to do so, and then it still leads to people unfortunately unaliving. And this one also continues Eric Matthews' story. It really just kind of sucks that there's a whole movie in between his whole saga in the Saw franchise. And I'm glad we got to actually finally see what happened to the guy. And his whole story ends in an incredible way, one of the best in the franchise. And then it ends, we get to see the new big bad of the franchise, Mark Hoffman, now fully reveals himself to be the next Jigsaw Killer. I kind of wish this was the next chapter in the franchise. I kind of wish 1, 2, and 4 were the first original trilogy. But then it also ties in with Saw 3. The ending just takes place right where Saw 3 left off. I just love the crazy, intertwined soap opera-y stuff in Saw. So Saw 4 had that in spades. We're now to the top 3. It's pretty clear what the top 3 are now. But I'm going to go into Saw X as the next one on this list. Saw X is clearly the best looking film out of the franchise. The cinematography in this is actually very good. And it has a very interesting story and very interesting moments. We get to see moments where Jigsaw is crafting, he's like sketching out traps in a notebook. And then the scene where we see him imagining what he'll do to this guy, even though it doesn't actually happen, which kind of sucks. But I thought that scene was really funny and really cool. A really cool addition to the film, just getting to see what goes on inside this guy's head. I do say the ending kind of sucks. I didn't like that they actually ended up getting away or that it's open ending, but obviously they're setting up sequels, so hopefully we'll see what happens next. But I did really, really like Saw X. And up next, I have Saw 2. I think that this is clearly the best group chat in the franchise. I love the group chat in the gas house with every single different character in there having their own test, and bringing back Amanda and having the twist ending that she's been a part of it the whole time. All great twists. And the great twist where he was in a safe place the whole time. Man, Saw 2 really was great. And we got to see John Kramer most of the film. God, Saw 2 is just so good. And obviously, number 1 is the original Saw, the film that sparked this franchise that will be at 11 films sometime next year. Lawrence and Adam's trap in the bathroom is iconic and has been parodied over the years as one of the most iconic moments in horror, especially the moment of Lawrence cutting off his leg. Really one of the most iconic moments in horror history. It's kind of hard to rank the Saw franchise and not give the number 1 spot to the original. And it really has one of the best twists I've ever seen. If you're looking at a film and you go into it knowing there's going to be a crazy twist, you're never going to pick the dead body that starts out the film on the floor. That's one of the best twists you'll ever see. And it just makes every single twist after Saw pale in comparison. How would you rank the Saw franchise? And what is your favorite Saw film of all time or Saw moment?